Jay, you coming in, or are you staying on the other side? Are you staying on the dark side?
I'm sitting on the dark side. Well, subject matter experts.
All set? Set? All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for being here. For years, I've sounded the alarm about the housing shortage in Vermont. And despite many agreeing, we haven't done anywhere near enough to make a real dent in the number of homes we need in Vermont, which contributes to our affordability crisis, impacts our workforce, and leads to fewer kids in our schools. And I know all too well we're facing challenges in other areas too, like education, affordability, and public safety. But we have to start somewhere to get Vermont back on a better path. And I believe housing is part of the answer to our many other challenges. Over the last 2 years, every week, members of my team from across state government meet to scrutinize as well as strategize our collective approach to housing, some of the progress being made, and address the gaps we're seeing. Now, I'm sure this won't be a surprise for most, but the top issues that come up over and over are the regulatory barriers, long and expensive permitting and appeals, and energy standards that are unaffordable and hard to understand, leading to delays that increase the cost of projects, which means more expensive and fewer homes being built for Vermonters. And although housing is something many in the legislature have advocated for, that hasn't led to enough changes in the right direction. In fact, Act 181, which was passed in 2024 over my veto, actually expanded Act 250 regulation on development across the state. The only relief provided were very limited short-term exemptions and a restrictive, narrow framework for future long-term exemptions. Unfortunately, by failing to make the changes many were advocating for, means the need for housing will continue to grow, further widening the gap between those who desperately need it and those who can afford it. So today I'll be signing an executive order to address many of the challenges we're seeing to help developers and home builders so we can make a dent in the 40,000 homes we need in the next 5 years. I'll now turn it over to Commissioner Farrell to walk through some of the details of the executive order.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for being consistent on this, and thank you for continuing to be led by data and evidence. So the Governor's clearly articulated the reasons why the actions in this executive order are needed. I'm going to walk through some of the mechanics of this multifaceted order. These actions are going to have the effect of expediting permitting timelines, reducing the cost to build homes, increasing the number of units in projects, and setting in motion enterprise-wide reviews of processes and policies that impact housing development. So before I get into the details, I want to emphasize that this will make a real difference immediately. This executive order is an attempt to pull the levers that we have control over in state government. We can't buy our way out of this, as the Governor has often said, and we've shown that even with hundreds of millions of dollars, we don't even get close to solving the problem. So these actions will make it easier and less costly to build homes in the state of Vermont. So first, on energy codes. The Residential Building Energy Standard and Commercial Building Energy Standard, this order provides flexibility to allow home builders, homeowners, contractors to comply with the 2020 RBs and CBs and stretch code while allowing voluntary compliance to the 2024 standard. In the coming months, the Department of Public Service will undertake an analysis of the cost impacts of the 2024 standards and will propose modifications to balance energy goals with housing production. On wetlands permitting modifications, for residential projects within certain areas designated for growth, the following changes will apply to wetlands permitting. Class 2 wetlands are limited to those features identified on the current VSWI maps, and no state wetland permits are going to be required for unmapped Class 2 wetlands. Protective buffer zones around Class 2 wetlands within these areas will be reduced from 50 feet to 25 feet. On housing project permits and the processing of these permits, this orders a priority processing of permits. It mandates that all state agencies and departments prioritize permit applications related to housing and shelter development over all other applications. On permit review timelines, this order mandates expedited timeline review, including shortened review and decision timelines with default approval when formal timelines are exceeded for housing or shelter applications. On permit fee relief, this offers fee relief to housing projects, including fee reductions or deferment of payments until the project is completed rather than at the time of application. On housing appeals, this requests that the judiciary prioritize and expedite residential housing appeals, and it suggests several very specific mechanisms to achieve that, as well as proposed timelines. This creates new mechanisms for interagency coordination on housing across the enterprise. This order establishes a new governor's housing task force to develop a permit modernization plan. This also orders an inventory of all state-owned land, an analysis of the feasibility of those properties for housing development, and an expedited process for lease or sale of those lands for development. On brownfields and contaminated sites, this order will extend an existing EO, creating the BERA program, Brownfield Economic Revitalization Alliance, which ensures effective and efficient mitigation and permitting related to brownfields with a one-stop shop. This order also directs the BERA program to recommend changes to the process for adopting soil standards to take into account development, feasibility, and consistency with other states in the region. The work affected by this EO will have specific performance metrics reported to the governor monthly, including average permit processing times for housing permits, the number of permits issued under these new expedited procedures, fee revenue impacts and budget adjustments needed for the affected departments and agencies, as well as identifying regulatory barriers and resolutions for those regulatory barriers within the agencies and identified by the task force. This order takes effect immediately and will remain in effect until December 31st of 2027, unless modified by any other actions. I want to reiterate the importance of these actions at this moment in housing. These don't diminish the substantial need for further legislative action, such as those proposed by the governor for the last several years. We still need significant action through the legislature. Nor will these actions on their own close the housing deficit. That said, this executive order represents a series of significant steps to improve the environment for building homes in the state of Vermont. Now you're going to hear from a couple of folks who are on the ground doing the hard work of building homes and who can explain how these actions will improve the environment for home building. So first, I'm going to hand it over to Jason Webster of Huntington Homes.
Hi, I'm Jason Webster of Huntington Homes. We are a residential and multifamily home builder. I've been building in Vermont since 1978. I'd like to thank you, Governor Scott and Commissioner Farrell, for lowering the cost of new construction for Vermonters. Not everybody could afford the requirements of one of the most stringent building energy codes in the U.S. The 2024 Energy Code added $12,000 to the average home over the 2020 code and $26,000 over the 2015 code. This executive order gives Vermonters more choices on how they want to spend their own hard-earned dollars. Those that can afford all-electric homes can still build them. Those that need more affordable options now have more and simpler choices. We are not losing anything here. We're just getting more homes built by making them less expensive. With home energy systems, technologies advancing as fast as they are, I am certain that we can add better working, less expensive, fossil fuel-free mechanicals to these homes later. The executive order is a step in the right direction for getting more homes built for Vermonters today. Thank you for working Vermonters. And now Colin Frisbee.
Good afternoon. I'm Colin Frisbee, a second-generation owner of Sterling Homes. We've been building homes and developing land in Vermont since 1979. Thank you, Governor Scott and Commissioner Farrell, for providing improved flexibility for developers and builders. Increased flexibility and clear timelines for permitting reduces the cost of housing for everyday Vermonters. These are important steps to attack the housing affordability challenge that our state now faces. Having clear timelines and regulatory certainty increases our predictability and speeds the overall process of development and allows us to work more efficiently with our lenders and other adjacent industries to deliver housing to Vermonters. Focusing on mapped Class 2 wetlands and reducing the buffers down to 25 feet in designated areas will allow for more comfortable density in the areas the state is working to encourage housing. The ability to streamline the permitting process while maintaining necessary protections is a win-win scenario. As a builder and a developer, we're excited to see the important steps being taken to make housing more affordable. Today's action focuses on areas Vermont wants housing and will serve to get that housing to Vermonters more quickly and less expensively. Thank you. I'll now turn it back over to the Governor.
Thank you both very much. And now we'll open it up to questions. You want to sign the executive order first? We can do that. Okay. And now we'll open it up to questions.
Governor, can you speak more about the reason that you're taking this executive action right now, right after the summer ends, as opposed to waiting until the legislative session starts to present these?
Yeah, I mean, we have to consider the backlog that we have, and we don't seem to be catching up on that. And when you have a backlog, in my years of being in the industry, it continues until you ramp up to take care of it. I'm afraid this is just going to keep getting worse. Even if we wait for the legislature in January, it's going to be months before anything's passed to give some relief, and we need relief right now. So think of this as just catching up on the backlog. Hopefully some of the measures we put into place will prove to be worthwhile, and the legislature will have an opportunity to see what we've done and maybe adopt those and put them into statute.
What do you see as being, are there one or two here that really you think are going to make a difference?
I think they're all going to make a difference, but maybe Commissioner Farrell can specify, or one of the builders themselves might specify what you think is most worthwhile in the EO. Please come up.
So I feel the 2024 RVs had some insulation requirements in them that went beyond where my experience, most clients, most Vermonters wanted to spend. When we build new houses, we're balancing lots of priorities. Energy is just one of them. And having that level of insulation required having lots of clients make some really tough decisions, some of them backing out of building altogether.
And when you spoke earlier about the 2020, 2024 energy requirements, were you specifically thinking insulation is the key there, or was there something else?
So not to go deep into the weeds of the way the energy code works, but there are there are two ways to meet, two things you have to meet, do to meet compliance on the energy code. One side is just a checklist of insulation values, and then there is then a required series of points that you need to meet with additional upgrades to meet the code. And there were, the current code had a lot of upgrades from the point systems that a lot of Vermonters' clients would have treated as luxury upgrades, not necessarily required for, for safe living. And so it was just adding to the cost of every new home.
Real quickly, as a builder and a developer, there's no $50,000 bolts in one of these houses that if we could just take that one out, it would reduce the price by the $50,000. It's more of the death of 1,000 cuts. And so what today's action does is reduce some of those cuts, and it's all going to tie together if we can have a little bit better density because of the wetland buffers, if we can adjust the insulation requirements, the balanced ventilation, if there are ways that we can reduce that upfront cost, particularly on things that could be added back later, as Jason spoke of earlier, I think that will help this move forward. Because as much as increased efficiency reduces the life cycle cost of that building over time, that upfront off the lot sticker price goes up, and Vermonters are having trouble meeting that upfront sticker price.
Governor, do you expect pushback from nonprofits or other folks?
I would hope not. I mean, I think this lends itself well to some of the nonprofits in particular, because I think everyone agrees we have a housing crisis on our hands, and it's just been difficult to find a solution to work our way through it. But you have to start somewhere, and I think that there's some, not everybody agrees with everything that we're doing, but I wouldn't think that there were many who would be opposed, especially housing advocates. But time will tell. We'll know sooner rather than later.
So you don't expect a court challenge to this?
I would hope not. Again, I think housing is just too important to the state for many, many reasons. And I mentioned those, the affordability of the state, the education portion, bringing more families in, workforce development. It's all intertwined with providing more housing so we can increase the grand list and other attributes to more housing. So we're just in desperate need, and I would hope that everybody understands that. We're trying to do the right thing here.
Did your office try to work with the legislation on these particular points before some of the...
I believe we have worked on some of them. I don't know which ones exactly, but Alex, maybe you can address that.
Sure. Yeah. I'd say the appeals and the wetlands are drawn from conversations we've had with legislators and are largely agreed upon by them. And this is just a way to expedite it within what's under the governor's jurisdiction.
So just to follow up on that, and it's been a little while since I looked at the details from the housing package from the beginning of the year, but is there anything that was in that package from January that was not signed and did not become law during the session that is now being signed here in the EO?
Aspects of what we proposed on wetlands are included in here. To be clear, there are other actions that would require statutory change. These are the items that would not.
Governor, how does this executive order help to maybe formulate plans to address challenges with Act 250 moving forward?
Well, again, we're trying to do everything we can to provide relief in many, many different ways. So I think if you look at the EO in overall, holistically, you just see the benefit of trying to move forward. Again, we need some longevity to Act 250. Some of the approach that was taken last year were short-term exemptions, and they're going to run out. We need those extended. We need to catch up on this housing. 40,000 units isn't going to come easy. So we have to pull every lever we have in order to accomplish that.
To the home builders, would you be able to start building houses, and how much savings in an average home would this executive order open up for you?
I'm sure Huntington Homes could use some of this almost immediately, but
Yeah. The reversion back to the 2020 code from the 2024 code is a savings of about $12,000 on an average 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home.
So that's pretty significant.
That's pretty significant.
You got like a percentage of the total cost of the home?
That's probably 5%.
All right, we'll switch over to the phones now. Tom Davis, Compass, Vermont. Tom, we can't quite hear you. Give us just a second.
I'm pretty sure he said he doesn't have any questions.
All right, we'll go back to the room if there's any more questions, then we'll come back to the phones.
Just an off-topic question, Governor. You know, with the new federal corrections contract renewed, in light of ICE detentions, did you consider not renewing it at any point? And at any point, did you see like any problems with?
Yeah, I mean, initially, when this all came to be, it was months ago, there was some pushback from many groups saying we should just end any relationship with ICE. But then we saw very quickly some of the high-profile cases that were coming to Vermont, being held in our facility, that was actually beneficial to those who were being charged. So weighing all that out and the financial positive financial effect it had on our budget, plus having a safe place for these folks to stay while they're being adjudicated, I think was important to everyone. So it was briefly we thought about it, but I think even some who were opposed to us having a contract came around to thinking this is the right approach, because we know the facilities here in Vermont, and they're safe, they're secure, and we treat people well.
Governor, have you gotten any more requests to send the National Guard to Vermont?
I have not over the last couple of weeks.
Okay, Tom, go ahead now.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
For either you or your invited guest, one of your contractors mentioned the idea of luxury items considered by people who have budgets. They can't have the optimal level of energy efficiency they want. Can you give a couple of examples of those, just because homeowners will understand that?
Sure. So in as I said, there are two components of meeting the energy code. There are the values that you need to meet, which are insulation standards between windows and walls and basements and attic, and mechanical system efficiencies. Once you meet those, you go. I was about to hang up. Once you meet those, then you go over to another list of. Sure. So to meet the current energy code, there are two kind of paths, two things you have to focus on to meet the code. The first is a list of values that you need to meet, which are just insulation values of windows, doors, walls, foundations. And then after you meet those values, you need to go onto a second list, and depending on the size of the house, there are a set number of points you need to accumulate for meeting other I'd call them, upgrades or performance benefits or enhancements to the home. And it's required to pick up these points. And so you can get points by going to higher insulation values in the walls or higher efficiencies in the mechanical systems. There are some items over there in that list that just aren't being built and put into, quote, normal homes, that are over there for the picking for additional points. And examples of that would be drain water recovery systems, which tries to capture some amount of heat out of the water that's draining from a bathtub. There are additional points available for very expensive and high-end mechanical ventilation systems that are picking up a couple percentage points more in efficiency, but costing $10,000 more to install. So it's really hard to navigate with a client over on that list of how to find things that are, cost effective, still will pay back with energy savings and or within what the client's budget is.
One follow-up on that, if you would. Is it fair to say that some of these upgrades are things that, because they aren't standard in almost any home, there are fewer manufacturers and there's a lower supply, making their prices higher?
Possibly. It's also, in general, it's a complication in the workflow of home building. And once we kind of step outside of the workflow, that's where costs can really start to take off.
Thanks very much. No other questions.
Keith Whitcomb, Rutland Herald. Keith, if you're talking, you're muted right now.
I couldn't hear you for some reason. That's weird. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Mr. Governor, I was curious. I understand the logic behind this executive order. I'm thinking there's probably a couple other issues you could apply the same line of reasoning to. So I'm kind of wondering, would you be contemplating more executive orders like this in the future? And sort of what's your thought process behind
Well, I think
when and how to use these?
Well, it's a great question. I can't answer it with certainty, but we really do want to focus on housing. It's something that I've been talking about for, it seems like, a decade. And the time may move forward with that. So if there are other things we can do with housing, we will certainly consider that. I can think of a couple of things from a financing perspective that we might want to take a look at. But again, I think we'll stick with one issue at a time at this point.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go back to the room for any final questions.
Governor, I also wanted to ask you about the Agency of Transportation's current budget reductions. Those hearings are happening today and tomorrow. What are the concerns with this? Heading into the winter, is worries that this will impact the agency's ability to help clear the snow?
Yeah, no, I have complete faith in the agency. It's a well thought out plan. We have to live within our means, just like everyone else, every other Vermonter. And so they put together a plan, I think, that makes an incredible amount of sense. And we will be implementing that and getting through this fiscal year. Again, if you look back from last year, we did have a heavy season in terms of snow. It was great for the ski areas, not so great for maintenance. We went over on salt and so forth, so that impacted some of what we we're left with now. But it didn't stop us from clearing the roads. We'll do whatever we have to do to make sure that Vermonters are safe. So I don't question that at all, but I might ask Secretary Flynn to maybe expand upon that. We're not hearing you, Joe.
We're having trouble hearing you. It's on our end, so we'll follow up with you after.
Strong need to dial down political rhetoric in this country. In light of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I think you put out statements to say, to reemphasize your belief about that. The president seems to be taking a different tact on this, and I'm wondering if you're disappointed by the approach that he's taking.
I am disappointed. I think this is the time for the president to step up and lead. I think back, I was on an interview this morning, and I was talking about this on air, and I go back to John McCain. John McCain was one of my idols in some respect. I think he had led an interesting life and did a lot of things that were right rather than political. He did what he thought was right, and I remember that debate, and it was a town hall meeting with John McCain, and there was a woman who said some derogatory things about Barack Obama. And I remember distinctly hearing John McCain saying, "No, ma'am, you're wrong about that. He's a decent family man, and you're just wrong." Now, in today's world, I'm not sure that would happen. It would happen with him, but for the atmosphere we have right now, it seems like everyone wants to double down on the politics. To advance themselves and to further divide this nation. We're so polarized now, it's getting worse. So we need more John McCains in the world to step up and act appropriately. I think there's a middle in the United States, in this country, that is thirsting for leadership. Governor Cox, for example, I think his statements over the last few days have been well received. He was the chair of the National Governors Association a couple of years ago, and he led an initiative called "We Need to Disagree Better." Is what the initiative was, and I remember he interviewed and had somebody interview a lot of us during that time, and I think again, Republicans and Democrats alike were saying the same thing, and it doesn't mean that we have to agree with one another, but we can be respectful and civil when we do, and understand that we all have a right to free speech. But that doesn't mean that we constantly have to tear the other side down in order to advance ourselves. So I would take, if the president were asking me, I would say take a page out of John McCain's book and act on what he would have done.
Because even Governor Cox has gotten some blowback now, right?
Sure.
And you know him fairly well.
I do. But he isn't backtracking. He's doing what's right. And that's what we all have to do. We have to step up and do what's right, even if it's uncomfortable.
Is it too much to say that we are at a pivotal point here in terms of political discourse in this country?
Again, I want to be clear. This didn't start with President Trump. He may be taking advantage of the atmospheric pressures we're seeing. This has been building for a while. But it's up to all of us on both sides of the aisle to, again, do the right thing, act appropriately, and know that we're role models for someone. And so just act appropriately. You can have your debates, discussions. I don't agree with everything the legislature's doing. They don't agree with me. But we can have that civil discourse without trying to just capitalize on an event that never should have happened.
You mentioned capitalizing. In the last few days, we've seen J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller go out publicly and talk about using Charlie Kirk's killing as almost like a justification for cracking down on speech from left-leaning organizations or groups that disagree.
Well,
with
this
them.
isn't
Would you condemn that?
this isn't a left or right issue. I mean, we saw what happened in Minnesota not too long ago. We saw what happened to the Speaker of the House, to her husband. This is left and right. It's not confined to one party. So be careful, what you wish for. Again, this is a time to lead, to rise above it, and do the right thing.
Do you have any concerns about safety following Kirk's assassination for public figures such as yourself in Vermont?
I have a good team, but that hasn't been a consideration for me. I'll continue to do what I've always done and meet the people where they are.
And one more thing, over in New York, Governor Kathy Hochul signed an executive order making it so that vaccines are available to everyone. Are you considering a similar executive order? Right now, you have to say that, you have to mention that you have a high-risk condition in order to get a vaccine.
Yes, stay tuned. We want to continue to offer vaccines, much like we have in the last few years. So you'll know shortly about what we're doing. But I've spoken to all my counterparts in the Northeast and trying to, glean a little bit of what they're doing and having something in common with them. So it won't look much different than some of the other governors in the Northeast and New England in particular.
Do you think that all adults or everyone in Vermont who would like to have access to a vaccine should be able to have it and have it covered by insurance?
I think it should be offered, whether it's covered by insurance or not. We're still trying to get through some of the legalities of what we're doing, but suffice it to say, we think people should be able to access vaccines for their health. And you should hear something within the next 24 hours.
Does DHS have any concerns related to this, or
I'm not sure that they do, but again, we'll find out. We're not trying to capitalize politically on this. We're trying to do the right thing, and that's what we should be doing, rather than condemning the federal administration for what they do or don't do. That's not the point. We just want to do what's right for the people of Vermont.
Last week, the Secretary of State, Vermont Secretary of State, Sarah Vance, said that she is intending to not comply with the request from DOJ to share kind of extended information on voters in Vermont. I'm curious what you think of that. Seems like that's going to be the way that they go on that.
I have faith in the Secretary of State to do the right thing. I haven't looked at the issue completely, but that's in her shop, her bailiwick, and I'm going to trust that she'll do the right thing.
do you have a reaction of Jerry, of Ben & Jerry's resigning from his position?
I didn't know he was working, to be honest with you. I thought he sold out to corporate America a long time ago, but I honestly didn't know he was working for them.
And of course, with the ongoing drought, it's kind of prompting questions about Vermont's hydropower. How much of the state uses hydraulics for power?
I don't know what the percentage is. We get a lot of hydropower from Canada. I don't believe they're experiencing what we're experiencing here, especially northeastern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So I haven't heard that there's a deficit of power coming from Canada, but it does impact those hydro dams on the Connecticut River and otherwise.
Gotcha. And I also wanted to ask if you're hearing concerns from ski resorts at all, because snowmaking is so important. Are they really concerned about making snow based on the drought?
Yeah. I haven't heard their concern. I'm sure they're concerned. Somewhat, but we've seen how quickly that turns around. It wasn't that long ago we were all complaining. You were reporting it complaining about how many weekends we went without having rain. That was seemed like a month ago. And now we're complaining that we haven't had enough rain. 2 years ago, last year, we were complaining we had too much rain, intense rain at that. So things turn around quickly, and I'm sure that we'll rectify the situation. Mother Nature will take care of it. Thank you all very much, and thank you very much.